Welcome. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Count Frightculous, and I will be your guide into the chilly, spooky scariness of the world, and maybe even perhaps the universe. But for now, our journey takes us down the road of these scary stories of long ago, found in these books that have been hidden away in the dark shadows of the clutter in closets of unsuspecting people who have them still in their collections, and you might find them in the basements or the attics, and I don't know, you might find them, well, what else could you find them? I mean, there's antique shops, and people like to have yard sales, garage sales. I think they've been found in thrift stores. Yes, these scary stories in these books. Many scary stories. Hundreds and hundreds of these things have littered everywhere. They're everywhere, but they're unsuspecting, hidden away. You may not even know. You could walk right past them and not even know they were there unless you're looking carefully to find the scary stories. But trust me, they are there. They are still there. And they are waiting to be uncovered again, to frighten you and scare you. Perhaps, maybe not. Maybe the stories are too old and they haven't lived up through the years. But that is partly why we are going to do tonight. We're going to go through a scary story book, and we will review it to see, is this really scary? And we will point out maybe some of the things that make it scary to the test of time. But make sure you want to stay to the end, because we have the Demon Baby to give an official rating of these scary stories. And she will do that with either 1 head spin, but not very scary, up to 5 head spins. Very scary. So scary, you would have already left. You probably would never see 5 head spins because you would have fainted before it ever got that far, because you've already been scared out of your own wits. And there's the knocking of the door. Let's see who it is. Yes, it's the Grim Picker, and he has chosen for us our book of scary stories to review. And I must warn you, never deny the choice of the Grim Picker. Once the decision is made, it must not be undone. And so now that we have our book of scary stories to review, let us see it more closely right now. Let's go. Hey. All right, we have our scary stories now in front of us. And now it is time for us to go through and review them to see if they indeed are scary. And as we look at it, the title of this one is called Creepy Things. And there you have it, Creepy Things. And right away you look at the cover and, oh my goodness, there's a giant, creepy looking, crawly, looks like it's a combination of a snail with a spider and a slug and everything all mixed together. And there's a boy on the front. The boy looks very disturbed. If you look at his face there, he looks very disturbed, but he looks like he's about to smack this other little one, and then there's the bigger one behind him. So it's very spooky cover. Now, if you're into the bugs and critters like this, then this cover would definitely appeal to you, and you would be like, oh, I want to see what is all kind of buggy things and creepy things this book has, right? But if you don't, then you might be freaked away from it and say, I don't like spiders, I have, arachnophobia or whatever, I don't want to be anywhere near this, so you might run away from it. So with that though, I have to say the rendition on the front, nothing wrong with it. Could be things, it's creepy things there. That is exactly what it is. I like the painting. It got a lot of highlight on the critter, so it really stands out against the dark, swampy thing that's behind, the swampy environment behind him. So let's open up the book. And the first story here in this scary stories is called The Greatest Treasure, okay? And so this story is about a spelunker archaeologist, and he appears. One thing I have to say right away for the first story, it jump cuts a lot, just cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. So the storytelling is very choppy and it's hard to follow, but at least you get the idea. It's sort of just a moment in time kind of things rather than really moving along, flowing very smooth there. So that is kind of difficult, but if you just read it for face value, what we have is like I said, a archaeologist, a spelunker, and he's in these dark caves, where it's very wet and damp in the caves, right, most of the time, and you don't know what could be hidden there in the unknown, but they don't really draw it that way. It's very light. That I think they could have used a lot more darks and blacks here in the cave to really get a sense of darkness, But either way, so they go and they try to find some kind of weird creatures there, and they're kicked out of that country, and then he goes to the South America, I believe it is, trying to find, in the jungles there, he tried to find another cave, and then that's about it. There's not much going on there, but you do know that the spelunker, you can tell he wants to be famous, and everything is like, oh, I got to have this will make me famous, this will make me famous, and he's willing to risk his life and the lives of his assistants to try to achieve that. And we see that a lot common in a lot of the scary stories. It's always somebody's desire, obsession. I want the power, or I want the money, or I want fame, whatever it is, and that drives them to do dangerous things and to create havoc and death for themselves and others around them. I will just start off, we will start at the beginning here, and just to show you, just to set it up, and then we'll kind of jump across it. So, there have always been men who dealt in caves. Legends say that there are creatures who once were human, who have lived so long in darkness, they are blind. Blind albinos who can never live up in the sunlight like ordinary humans. Not many people have seen them, but archaeologists and famous spelunker, they put in parentheses, cave explorer, Dr. Adam Webb encountered such a tribe once in Tasmania. And then the woman here is saying, don't kill them, Dr. West, they're helpless. And no, I must capture one, I will be famous. And he's got his gun. I guess he's going to shoot one of them and just drag the dead body out. And that way, he'll just say, hey, look what I found in the cave. It's dead, but I found this. But the sound of the gun, see, right there. But the sound of the gun startled a rock fall. The rock apparently hits him, and then the lady runs to the guide, and they get them out of there. He gets out of there. They do, escape alive, but they're kicked out of the country. And it says, your party's travel permits have been revoked, Dr. Webb. You've got 24 hours to leave the country. So they kick him out. So apparently he was doing a tour in the cave, and he went off on his own, and he had a gun in there somehow. He was able to smuggle a gun, and he was going to shoot something in the cave. And that's kind of a crazy thing if you think about it. If you're doing a tour and I mean, that's not scary to me. That's ridiculous. That's frightculous. A month later at the university where Dr. Webb taught archaeology, Heather Train and Brian Ridley discussed the famed spelunker. Dr. Webb wants us to accompany him to South America, Heather. A Javaro band discovered some weird caves he wants to see. There'll be snakes and bugs, and I'll look like a hag for a month, Brian. And he says, well, Dr. Webb wrote a book about those creatures in the Tasmanian cave, Heather. He'll do anything for fame and money. See, right there, they tell us. I'm frightened, Brian. But if we refuse to go, we'll lose our jobs on his archaeological staff. So see, he's kind of a mean man too there. He'll fire you. You don't want to go into the dangerous cave with all the bugs and the snakes, then you're fired. Right? It's like, come on, like could be very dangerous. Anyway, they go to the caves, and we see they're going through the jungles and down the river, and they have a guide with them that's going to help them, one of the local tribe, the Javaro tribe, I believe. And so his name is Igana, and he says here, Igana saw evil omens today. He thinks he is going to die. Igana, what is it? Kijawa mama. Yeah, I did pretty good there. Hold it, Igana, I'm warning you. And then you see a Javaro dart. Stand fast, they may only be after Igana. This is a very dangerous territory. Now here we get into a little bit darker imagery, and so it's kind of scary. But what we find there is we hear this loud noise, they're hearing a loud noise, and then all of a sudden it's a giant caterpillar, looks like. And he's like, what is it, Dr. Webb? Quick! And it's funny, this guy's an archaeologist. He's he's supposed to discover ancient things. He's a spelunker. And so his assistant, Brian, is like, what is it, Dr. Webb? And Dr. Webb's first response is, quick, kill it! It's not even like, wait a minute, let's see what this is, or get away from it, kill it! Just like he was going to shoot the cave dwellers there in Tasmania, right? So he's very quick to just kill everything. And of course, there he is, he's shooting it. Bullets can't stop it. And this is very kind of comical to me. He says, perhaps this insect repellent will stop it. And we see Brian there. For some reason, Brian is shirtless. But, I'd be very careful with that. I mean, you're in the jungle. There's probably a lot of mosquitoes with malaria or yellow fever. Who knows what all you could get from a bug bite. And he's running around shirtless. That's very careless, Brian. But you see him there with the insect repellent, a little can of bug spray, and he's shooting at this giant caterpillar when the bullets are bouncing off of it, apparently. And then he says, look, it's driving him back, Brian. Run, sir, the repellent can is empty. Well, of course, I mean, that one small can, that's barely going to even do anything, but the bug, apparently, this bug, I say bug, it's a giant monster caterpillar, did push it back a little bit. And he says, the strange slithering thing did not return. In the morning, Dr. Webb and his young helpers began to search for the caves. So they go and they look for the cave, and they actually do find the cave. They go in, and they start finding things right away. And he says, this isn't a cave, sir. This tunnel was bored. Do you know what this is, Brian? He's like, it's an emerald. Here comes Heather with her smart remark. And do you big emerald hunters know what this is? These from a tree. What about it? They're not dried out. Someone or something carried them in here recently. And then Dr. Webb, he's so careless. He just writes it off. Probably one of the Javaro children. If they interfere, we have weapons. Come on. He's threatening to shoot children now. I mean, this man is ruthless. He's so careless and ruthless. I don't understand how he became famous as an archaeologist and a spelunker. As careless he is, just kill everything. He's the real scary one in the story, not the big worm. It's the man with the gun that's willing to shoot anything that moves. That's what you should be careful of, Brian and Heather. And then here they are. This tunnel is widening. There's a big chamber. These tunnels are deep. There are all kinds of minerals, but I'm seeking one special kind. And it's like, yee! We have another worm jumps out. I've got another can of repellent, Dr. Webb. Get Heather away. He ran, Brian. Now Dr. Webb is just leaving his assistants behind. He has no care for them. He's after one thing only, as we see here. And then they're running away, and then they see some light up ahead, and they're like, the walls are glowing, Heather. There's something in the soil that, my God, it's a uranium. Now, how he's able to detect the uranium right away, but he sees that it's uranium. Dr. Webb, that's deadly. You'll get radiation poisoning. We've got to get out. And Dr. Webb, they're very hungry for attention and fame, and the riches apparently now, he says, keep away from me. What I have here is worth millions. And then Brian, he won't leave the uranium. He'll die down here. Yes, he will, very quickly, if he's got actual uranium in his hands. Back at the river, Brian used a radiation counter to check them both. They were not badly radiated, as if we just got a little bit of the radiation, we should be okay. And they just so happen to have a radiation counter in the boat with them. You know, when you go deep into the jungle and you have to carry everything, you know, that's one of the necessities apparently. Hey, don't forget the Geiger counter. We need to make sure we don't have radiation poisoning in the jungle. They were not badly radiated and they lost no time heading downstream. Dr. Webb, Brian, what? He says, he'll never get out. If he does, the Javaros will be waiting for him. We barely managed to escape. And this last panel is very interesting because I guess that's why he's saying that Javaros will be waiting. Because you see these arrows flying. If you look at the panel, I can see an arrow hitting here on the tree, it looks like, another one flying over, like towards them. So I guess they were being chased by the natives. But that's it. That's the end of that story. It was very confusing to me. We just know there was an archaeologist who was very bent on fame and fortune as well, because he was going after those weird cave-dwelling creatures. He was going to shoot them even though he was on a guided tour. And then later he goes to South America to look what we thought was maybe more creatures, but it was actually the uranium. So how did he know the uranium was in that cave? And you're telling me nobody else was looking for that or knew it was there? How did he figure it out before ever being there? Very strange indeed, very strange story. It was just very loosely knitted together. What we can get out of it is the scary thing was Dr. Webb, because he was careless and he was just shooting anything that moves. He was going to shoot the children, he was trying to shoot the giant bug, right? And he was going to shoot the cave dwellers and I guess drag the body back and have it taxidermied and become famous from it, right? That's what it appears to be. So for the next story, it is called A Spell of Misery. And it does have the creepy crawly critters in there, the creepy things, but it does it in a different style. And at first, you wonder if it has anything to do with it at all, but it does. And so now I will review this scary story. So just the basic overview, it is about a slumlord and his really dilapidated, rundown apartments that he rents really high, but he never does anything for the upkeep of them. He cares nothing about his tenants, only about raking in as much money from them, from his rundown apartments. And of course, these apartments have lots of cockroaches and rats, and the people are complaining, and it's very poverty-stricken. But he's threatening to kick them out if they don't pay their rent. And so one of the families that he threatens to kick out, the mother used to practice the voodoo. And so she seems a little reluctant to want to bring that up, but she knows that she must protect her family. And so she delves into this dark art to try and keep her family from being evicted from their little ragtag, ratted out, infested, tattered apartment home. So she starts to do the voodoo on the slumlord, and it is effective. He starts to feel the effects. He's feeling burning, he's feeling sick, all of this. And then she summons him, calls him to come to the apartment building. And he goes, he must obey, he goes. And then she shrinks him down to a little man. And so he's running around, having to run away from the big cockroaches and the big rats now, of course, because they're regular size, but he's the little bitty thing running around, and he's just scared out of his mind, right? And so then she doesn't kill him, he doesn't die, because they need him, I guess, to fix the building up, but he's scared so badly from all of this terror that he had to witness that he decides at the end to use his money to fix up the apartment building. So it does end in a happy way. No one actually dies. So it's just a story. It's kind of like if you think of the Christmas, the Scrooge, where he's visited by the different ghosts and then he has a change of heart at the end. That is what this story is like. You want to meet a real creep? He looks ordinary enough, but Mr. Ruggles is one of a breed of monsters far more hideous than those of myth and legend. Mr. Ruggles is a slumlord, right? So there you go.
that sets up, you see how mean of a person he is, right? He doesn't care about the tenants. He owns incredibly neglected, run-down homes in the ghetto of this city, squeezing huge rents from the tenants in rat-infested, vermin-laden fire traps that have no heat, no hot water, broken plumbing, and human inhabitants deprived of hope. And then you hear he says, furthermore, Mr. Ruggles enjoyed seeing their misery. He says right there, this is one of my most profitable properties. I've never spent a dime on it, and I've collected what it cost me a dozen times over. So he doesn't do anything. So then he knocks on the door, and the woman answers. She's got the little baby, and you can see that it's just a very poverty-stricken place. And he's telling her, you owe me $390, woman. Pay or I'll have you sent to jail. You're evil, man. Once, when Mama Carafino is young, she live in jungle. I make voodoo when bad man like you bother good people. I fix him. I think I fix you, landlord. So then Mama Carafino starts to practice her voodoo. She pulls out the doll, she does the rituals, she starts to do the drumming like the voodoo drum, right? And she's chanting and doing it. It's very creepy. This is one thing though that's about the voodoo. It's a seance. You're conjuring dark arts. I know in this book they're trying to do it in a way like, hey, this is going to help us. We have to do something to try to protect us from this evil man, right? But evil, going against evil is going to only bring more evil, really, in the end. This story ends differently, but I would suggest do not practice the evil. Voodoo is not a good thing to start playing around with. And also, another thing not good to play around is like the seances with the Ouija boards and things like that. I know it can seem like a game, and more or less it kind of is, but you still have the intention of evil. You still intention of darkness. You're still intending to contact spirits in a negative way, in a way that is not, good faith, right? You're doing it in a very dark arts kind of way. And so because of that, even though you don't have the darkness in you and you're not thinking evil maybe technically ways, you could be bringing about some negative energy that you do not want to have. So I would just warn against the voodoo or anything similar to the dark arts. So anyway, as she goes on, she keeps going on with the voodoo. We see her, and then the man is Mr. Ruggles and is at home, and he starts to have problems, as we see. And it's dum dum dum, and he's like, I hear strange words, and that blasted drum is driving me out of my mind. Jambalaya says come, I must obey. And he goes to the house, and she sees him there, and now you can see her face. She looks like she's very tormented now. She's very much into her voodoo, and she's got the weird look on her eyes, the white eye, the eyes roll back in the head, right? And she's very spooky. I can imagine this is a very, the light incense, I guess, the burning of the smoke. So it's got to be a very scary place. But then she turns him small, right? I can't read this shit. You big small now. And that's when she shrinks him down. And we see he's been shrunken down. And now he has to run away. No, get it away from me. It's a big cockroach, right? Coming after him. He's running away. Well, then she grabs him by his collar. Now you know, Bodman. Small babies hurt by rats. Bugs bite children and big people. All your fault, Bodman. I know it is, Mama Carafino. I'll fix up this house. It'll be different from now on. And then we see him awake in the bed, and he's scared, and he says, we have to spend all the money to fix this house. And apparently they do, and it ends, and that's it. And they show these people saying a prayer, but they still had used the voodoo to get their way. So I can only imagine later, even though they used the voodoo and they think they succeeded, something tells me they may have released some negative energy back into that house. And there could be some negative things happen later. I'm just saying. We have quickly a very short one-page little quick story here, just one, and it's called A Trap, and I will just briefly explain it since it's in here, just so you can see it. It is kind of creepy, even only for one page. It's a hiker, and he sees a spider web. And he's like, well, looky here, a leaf suspended by a spider's web and spinning in the wind. I wonder if it could act as a lure. And sure enough, it is. I'll be a porcupine's pincushion. The gnat was attracted to the spinning leaf like a moth to a flame. Well done, spider. I hope you enjoy your meal. And then later he's walking along and he sees another leaf dangling and he goes to investigate it. And guess what? It is a trap again, but for him. And we see him. A rewarding observation if we accept the reward of death. So again, be careful when you're in the jungle or the woods. Always tread lightly and be careful and watch for big spiders. I don't know. It was kind of a creepy story. For it being one page like that, it really hits the point and you get it right away. And it had a beginning, had the end. It all worked out, but it was kind of creepy. Now on our next and last story for this scary book of creepy things. Now we really get into the creepy things. I've been waiting the whole time saying, okay, there's a little bit there, little bit here. Now we get into the creepy things for sure. It's called Slimes, Slogs, and Glumps. So the story takes place in the swamp. And there's a boy, little Joe Reichert. And he's like most boys. He's catching frogs and playing with the slimy creatures that he can find in the swamp, getting dirty like a boy would, and kind of should at that age, exploring. And he comes across his friend, and his friend says, oh, I know where there's some really slimy, goopy things that if you really want to see something amazing. And he's like, of course, let's go. So here is something I thought was kind of entertaining. This is the very beginning of the story. He catches the frog, and then he says, gosh, but you're an ugly looking critter. I'll bet that even your mama thought you were ugly. And then we hear somebody else say, you're mighty ugly looking yourself. It's what kids are probably gonna be talking to each other. They like to rag on each other. And he's like, well, if it ain't Kathy Ann Crowther. Looky here, I got me the ugliest toady frog in the county. And she says, he ain't so ugly. I've seen uglier things over by the creek. You'd say that no matter what I said. If I told you he was the highest hopper in the county, then you'd say you knew a higher one. No, I wouldn't. I know where there's things so ugly you can't stand to look at them. So he climbs onto her barge, and they start to go down the swamp in that, passing by a lot of alligators and whatnot. And I mean, that's kind of creepy, really. I mean, you're on this flat barge, right? And you're just going down the swamp, and there's alligators around you, just waiting probably for you to slip up. So they have a nice little meal, eh? So that's creepy. That is scary. The alligators. Ooh, be very careful with the alligators. So then she shows him, she finds these weird little slimy creatures, and she says, this is a slog, and this is the other thing. And so he takes some of them home with him, like a boy would. He captures them and tries to take them home with him. And his mom says, what you got there? You got frogs? I don't know why I'm using this southern accent now. Let me go back to my regular voice. I was getting into the book there. I was getting into the story. It's good. He says, no, those aren't frogs, Mother. I just bringing some things in. And so he goes to his room and, no, sir, I ain't got frogs in my room. And then that night, they start making all these weird noises. And they wake up, and the mom says, Pa, wake up. I hear strange noises coming from Joe's room. All right, but it's those stupid frogs of his. And she says, here, take this axe handle. What for? Okay, but you sure are a panicky woman. Oh, Lord, what are them things? And there's all kind of creepy things. He starts smashing them, smacking them and smashing them and killing them. And he says, those hideous things, where did you get them? They gave them to me to have for the night. I was supposed to return them in the morning. And he says, they? The big slime, slogs, and glumps. The little ones, folks. Oh boy. So kind of comical, but scary at the same time. So basically, the parent, there's bigger of these things, and these were the children. So when these parents come looking for their children, there's going to be a price to be paid at that household, I would say. And with that, that is the end of the book. So, what did you think of the creepy things? Was it very creepy? I mean, if you're into the insects and the spiders and all that, it could be considered kind of scary, but I didn't feel this book was very scary. One thing I did find with the first one was that Dr. Webb was quite an interesting character, very careless, right? Who goes on a guided tour and takes a gun and then sees something, hey, that's unique, and then wants to shoot it to take him so he can become famous from it, right? You would think that the tour company would have already seen these creatures before, but apparently they didn't, because obviously, they would have told you on the tour, and he wouldn't be thinking he was going to become famous if he was able to take one back with him. But I can't imagine that the tour company would allow him to drag a corpse out of the cave. That would probably not be good for business when the other tourists see this, all right? Okay, so I don't know what he was thinking. And then they go in the jungle, and he's going to threaten to shoot the children if they come and bother them. And I mean, the man was just, he was a mess. He was a menace, right? But he paid for it in the end. Surprisingly, though, you thought he would get killed by a bug or something like that, right? No, he was going to die from the uranium that they discovered in the walls of this cave. So it's amazing. It was an amazing story that had a very big twist. And then the other stories, the one with the voodoo there. The only real creatures you got, the creepy things, was when the man was shrunk down, and then he had to get away from the rats and the cockroaches, right? And then the last one was, with the slumps and the slogs and the slimes and all the weird whatever slogs. But we find out that the parents kill these things haphazardly, and the parents of those little weird slimy things are going to come a-calling soon. So we can only imagine what kind of chaos will ensue in the swamp when the parents get upset that their little offspring have been splatted all over the walls with an axe handle. All in all, not a very scary book in my opinion, so we will find out though, because now we must go to get the official rating though from Demon Baby. So Demon Baby, if you will please come aware and give us a rating so we can see what you think, even though I think we are pretty sure what's going to happen here. There's going to be no surprises this time, I can't imagine. Okay, so now the Demon Baby is aware, and she will give us her official rating for this scary storybook. What shall she do? Let's see, there she is. She's waiting. Maybe she's contemplating what she's thinking about. And okay, we got one head spin. That is one head spin there for this book of scary stories. Yes, and let's see any more. Will the Demon Baby give us any more head spin? I don't know. That's all. One head spin. That is it. Nothing else. Well, I'm a bit surprised, because a lot of times people are very scared of the spiders and the worms and the other little creepy crawly critters, the cockroaches and what else? The beetles, all kinds of things that are there. Are you scared of any of these types of insects? I can tell you the one I hate the most. If I could hate, I don't want to use the word hate. That's a bit extreme. But if there was any insect that I could just eradicate from the planet, let's put it that way. If I could eradicate anything from the planet, I would choose probably the wasp or maybe the chiggers. Have you ever had the chiggers? Now that could be a scary story to tell about the chiggers and the wasp working together to do all kinds of horrible things. But anyway, the bugs can be scary, not so scary. I guess the Demon Baby is not scared of the bugs. I don't know why. She's a doll. I can imagine some gnats or some kind of fleas or something getting into the hair or the moss eating away at the clothes. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. Anyway, Demon Baby gave it the one head spin rating, and we have to go with that, right? I'm not going to argue with the Demon Baby. Are you? Are you going to argue with that? No. Let's leave it alone. Let's walk away, very peaceful, into the night air, and let's just keep it for another day so we can go and review the scary stories. And so now, with that, I'm going to leave you. I want to bid you a farewell, and I hope that you have a
chilling, spooky, yet a peaceful, by not upsetting the demon baby, a peaceful scariness.